Того, что наши отношения с Западом находятся на какой-то низшей, худшей точке со времен холодной войны, ну, возможно, где-то эта оценка есть. Мне кажется, сейчас вообще про другое. Сейчас уже не про точки, не про уровни, не про что-либо другое. Сейчас идет вопрос, или сейчас мы видим, как Запад, коллективный Запад, все больше и больше.
Hello, dear friends. This is Moscow Hawk again. It's an extra issue because I got a question from a viewer. It's Christoph Becker from Germany. And Christoph asked me, well, if you have any questions, you can put any questions forward, I will answer it. As to this geopolitical fighting, as to this new war, which is continuing and unfortunately just developing in a negative way, about me, about some impressions of me in Russia and other things. So you can in a written form put it forward on the YouTube channel. Also subscribe and spread free expression. So Christoph Becker, he was asking about my background and so on. So I introduce myself again. My name on YouTube is Moscow Hawk. My name is Haukur Hauksson. It means in Icelandic translation is hawk, the bird, the hawk bird. So Moscow Hawk is my YouTube name. I've been here in this country, in Russian Federation now. It's New Russia now. So I was 2 years under Soviet power, 1990 and 91, because I came to study on a stipendium in Soviet Union, and it was 2 years. I came in February 1990, and straight in October I began as a radio reporter, correspondent for the Icelandic State National Broadcasting Service, Ríkisútvarpið, which is a channel of Icelandic radio TV national. I worked there for 20 years, but then I left the channel, or well, they let me go. I was not on the party line as to the Iraqi wars, as to the NATO expansion, and I didn't reflect the Reuters and what they were. They did not agree to my, well, independent, I would say. It was independent. So I'm for Saga, Útvarp Saga, Radio Saga in Iceland, and been 33 years in Russia, family, working also in the tourism, but crisis now. And in the West, there are repression against free speech, free meaning and expression. I wouldn't go too deep into it. My friends from Germany, Austria, Netherlands, they are USA and so on, other countries. They are just dissidents now, and the bank accounts were confiscated by some police forces. They can't go home, they would be under arrest and so on. And they say in Iceland it's a little bit better, but my voice is not there. So support free speech and so on, and expression, because we are in a very dangerous situation. So Becker, I answered Christoph. I was answering your question. And also I was on a press conference online of Maria Zakharova. I would take over those theses she was talking about.
Эксплуатации и ресурсов других частей света, а просто за счет своего трудолюбия, за счет развития науки, техники, за счет эффективного...
The Stalinistic architecture skyscraper in Moscow, one of the 7 buildings, this style. This is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. As we see here, of course, hammer and sickle. This war is hot. It's a real war, which the goal is to destroy Russia, Russian Federation, and even to colonize the vast territories, the resources of Russian Federation. This is a quote again into Maria's words. So the rhetoric, as I have said, is very changed and quite harsh towards the West. So Meta, Meta. This is Zuckerberg. This is Facebook and so on. They already recognize Azov battalion not as a criminal or fascistic movement, and they do now approve after Davos meeting. I don't know if Zuckerberg came, but Ukrainian officials were there, and after Davos, they Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, they decided to acknowledge Azov as normal organization, but the U.S. Parliament and court, they put Azov in a criminal group. So not so long ago, before, of course, before the Russian invasion into Ukraine. And the Human Rights Watch, at last, they recognized the using of anti-personal mining, lipistki in Russian, and but the Russians, they have been trying to explain that those very inhuman mines are used for many months and years against civilians in Donbass. In Holland, Netherlands, William Alexander, the king, and Richter, the prime minister, they apologized to countries where they were colonizing for many years. But Maria Zakharova, she claimed that they forgot Indonesia, where they were robbing, as her expression, and stealing goods from this country, as well as cultural heritage, as well as the Brits did against Egypt, Greece, and other countries, and they don't return a piece. Also, another case as to Germany, as to Netherlands, is that there was some celebration of when the Soviet army, the Red Army, freed Auschwitz-Birkenau, Oswiecim, in 27th of January 1945. Russian organizations and the Russian embassy and the diplomats were invited by Jewish organizations and others to ceremonies and events in Holland. But the Netherlandic Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they banned the Russians from attending, which they just put as they put it as fascism. The Russians, as again, I'm quoting Maria, as you know. So Suriname and Indonesia, they forgot that, and they practiced atrocities as to the spokeswoman of Russian foreign affairs policy. So NATO globalization, another quite interesting topic. NATO is globalizing. This is as to the visit of Jens Stoltenberg, the Norwegian future bankman, and Lloyd Austin, the Pentagon head, to South Korea and Japan. So they are globalizing their mandate worldwide, and the goal is economic control over those countries. Also, it's this destabilization in the region against Russia and the Chinese People's Republic. NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and she says that this has nothing to do with security. This is for destabilization. So also they are establishing AUKUS. It is Australia, UK, and USA, UK, US, This is an Anglo-Saxonian, military and imperialistic style organization, as to spokeswoman of the Russian ministry. They are trying to put Japan and South Korea into this package, also to control their industry and to put them into this anti-Russian, anti-Chinese pact. Censorship is very strong in the US and the EU. She forgets Russia, but it came to Russia after this SVO, after this Ukrainian operation or invasion. But she is right that censorship, they even censor the president. I'm talking about Donald Trump, of course, John Trump, when he was taken off Twitter and so on. So this is a very worrying development. She was asked from Reuters. Reuters asked her about Blinken-Lavrov proposal, and Tony Blinken, he sent Sergei Lavrov some letter through the Egyptian Minister of Foreign Affairs, who were here in Moscow. But she didn't answer concrete to this question, and Lavrov, he doesn't show any attitude towards Blinken, and he said, yes, he was funny. They make fun, the Russians, of it. They say that if Blinken wants to talk to Lavrov, let him phone or let him talk to his own embassy. So they are using some people in this really respected Egyptian ambassador to put some messages to Mr. Lavrov, so they make fun of it, you know. The war didn't begin, of course, yesterday. In this is some remark of mine. That's quite right, because the Western press, they think the war began in 24th of February. Began 8 years ago. Some claim it began even after the breakup. I was reporting on the breakup of the Soviet Union in Icelandic press then, often live. I was in the White House and so on. That the West, they think, and the conceptual thought of these neoconservatives, the liberals and so on, is that they had to cross Russia as possible because they won the Cold War. We have now a new man in the Kremlin, because the 31st of December 1999, Boris Yeltsin, I remember this as yesterday, came to the television, live speech, live, he was more or less okay, and he announced he's stepping down from his office, and according and coherent to the constitution, the prime minister, currently it was Vladimir Putin, should take over. But I want to say now that it's a new man now in Kremlin. He is more sober in a way, in all matters, I would say. It's my personal view. So she touched also the African, let's end maybe with Africa. It's interesting matter that Mr. Macron, some call him Micron, it's a small joke, but nothing bad, Mr. Macron, as to the local population, that he wanted, he claims that Russia is taking over or occupying Africa. Certainly in Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, Central African Republic and other former colonies, French company, they say they're imperialistic and colonizing, have been colonizing. They are moving away, many in the mining field, in the oil industry and so on, but many French companies anyway are leaving Africa. And Macron, he is blaming Russia for this, but people are there with Russian flags, maybe some Soviet insignia as well, as to nostalgia, because they were hacked by Soviet power. Many of them studied here in Moscow and so on. But Macron, is blaming Russia or Russians of putting them and wanting to establish a vacuum and take it over. And she said it is a total nonsense of Mr. Macron